Some of you might be wondering why we're doing this event with an Olympian, a nonprofit founder, a firefighter, and a healthcare professional. And it all actually is because of Jeff Hamilton. Carolyn and I were talking about a month ago, and this conversation really began as a very simple but also meaningful moment. And we found ourselves circling back to this idea that keeps showing up in all these different ways. And that is that courage and creativity don't just appear out of nowhere. They begin with a sense of safety, safety in the body, safety to try, safety to be seen and heard. And so Carolyn and I began to wonder out loud, what would it look like to bring together the Jeff Hamilton Juniper Award recipients and explore this idea? Is safety in the body a thread that allows each of us to be brave? Is it what opens the door to imagination, expression, and connection? And what's beautiful and exciting is that while music is the lens for this conversation and the reason why we're all here tonight, it's not the center of it.
Let's start with just what does safety feel like in your own body, and how does it lead to your own courage and creativity?
I mean, it's this idea of embodiment, being in your body, is the key for what we're doing with our breath work, and that I personally believe is one of the foundational pieces to thriving. It's a very interesting question because it's not so simple to be able to use the brain to try to quantify and describe what a feeling is. And so, but if we're trying to use words, the words that come to mind are things like feeling present and feeling, obviously in order to get there, I believe that you have to feel safe. I feel calm, I feel at my best. I feel this sense of flow where you're balancing effort and ease. I feel creative. And most importantly for me, when it really is amplified at its highest, I think is when you are really in touch with out of your thinking head and into your feeling body and into your heart space. Practice of embodiment, I think, is really what makes us experience consciousness and living, which is ironically, you think of consciousness as thinking, and I believe it's actually really feeling.
For me, safety isn't just about like a paycheck or a locked door. It's about emotional peace. And so when I feel emotional security, I feel the headspace to actually show up for the rest of my life, which is really my clients that I work with. I like to think of it less like a quiet stillness and more like a solid floor. This is like my grounding place. Emotional safety isn't just a mood for me, it's a structural foundation. The people that I'm serving, they're moving through this world too. And I feel like I constantly have this, I have to be mentally stable for them.
It's ironic because being safe in my body is hard to do in a sport where you're constantly risking it all. And so yeah, like I said, I think it's a lot about preparation for me. I think that it's about the work that you put in. Do you feel strong enough to be there? Physically, mentally, are you working with a mental coach? It's arguably one of the most important things in our sport, because when you drop in timid and, fearful and scared, that's generally where you end up getting the most injured. So a lot of time and prep goes into just putting yourself in a place that you can feel the most safe, in a place where there's a lot of risk at hand. There's no point where you're dropping into anything that we do thinking, this is safe, I'm gonna be, there's a guarantee I'm gonna be fine, because that's not the case. So that's the big one, is preparation.
For me, safety is a sense of calm, but also alertness. So for me, it's about working with students, it's about sort of embracing that paradox of feeling scared, but also calm and grounded.
A lot of it is exactly what everyone here is saying. Being prepared, right? Because you're dropping into a patient room not knowing what to expect. If you come off as nervous or timid, they're gonna see your judgment being like, I'm not doing okay, right? As a patient, right? So a lot of it's coming in calm and like just kind of steadfast and prepared to see whatever it is in front of you.
Is there one very physical thing you do to get to that point of safety?
For me, a lot of it's education, just being prepared to see whatever it is that human body can go through. The second is, in order to calm myself, a lot of times I rely on sports or music right? To kind of calm your nerves and get your brain in line with your body, because they're two different things that are always trying to compete with each other. So by training either in soccer or lacrosse or climbing, kind of helps me steady myself in those high adrenaline moments. When I reach those moments where I have to react quickly, I'm not just knee-jerk reacting. I'm able to calm myself down and then be able to do what I need to do in that moment.
I don't think I've ever told anyone this in my life. Before I do something really scary, I'm not a religious person by any means. I'm a very spiritual person, but I'll just close my eyes and I'll just look up and I'll just say thank you. And I'm gonna welcome everything that comes my way in this moment. And I take 3 big breaths and then I do it.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So I actually have a sort of ritual or maybe superstition where when I set up a new snowboard, I always write a quote between my bindings. I think about where I'm at in my life, my career, and I will sometimes look through a few quotes and think like, okay, what's applicable to me right now? Like what either gets me fired up or grounds me or whatever I'm feeling in the moment at the time of setting that snowboard up. So I always write a quote in paint pen between my bindings, and then before a high adrenaline situation like dropping into a competition, I always look down at between my bindings and read the quote. The greatest one I think is no guts, no glory. You know, if you don't take those risks, if you don't take those chances, you'll kind of never know what could have been. So that was one of those ones that like instead of grounding me, it was like firing me up. I was like, all right, come on, no guts, no glory. I gotta go for it.
I always like resort back to music, right? Like when I'm feeling really not super safe or anxious or any of these things, like I can pick out all these songs that I'm like, okay, this is gonna make me feel good.
I'm really into stacking functions, because then you get a synergistic effect. It's even more powerful. And our brains, like we spend most of our waking time in beta brain waves these days, which is like high alert problem solving. Like it's an not impossible, it's a very difficult state to rest, recover, be creative. And we're only supposed to be in that like 10% of the time. And so what tricks we come up to get out of the beta and into alpha, delta, or theta is really up to us. And a lot of it's situational. And the more you stack functions, movement, being outside in nature, music, the breath, repetition, all those things together then create a very powerful way to tame this beast. And we can't expect to have command over our mind if we don't train it. If you want to be strong at feeling safe and comfortable, you have to practice being uncomfortable. And so that means you have to condition yourself to doing the hard thing. And that way, when the hard thing shows up and it really matters, then you're calm. For me, the breath is the thing that if I had to just do one thing, it would be that. But the combination of functions makes a stronger effect.
I would love for you to think if you have a story about a time that you facilitated those people you work with, their safety enough that they were able to express creativity or express courage. I did a breath work with Randy and Jody, which took me way out of my comfort zone. I was just talking to Randy about that, and I was applauding him for making me feel safe in a very new situation. And what Randy did for me was he invited me to leave if I needed to leave. Me, meaning everyone, but I took it personally. He invited me to not breathe at the same pace as everyone if I couldn't. He invited me to be feeling safe in my body in order to experience something that was the first time since Jeff died that I felt truly embodied, and that was an exceptional experience. So I just took your time.
That's pretty good.
Obviously, let's come back to you though, because I would love to hear your opinion.
I have a little phrase at work. Is can I get you a warm blanket? That goes a very long way in making someone feel comfortable and kind of seen not just as a problem or issue with their physical body, but also just like you're a human being, how can I comfort you? Just giving that comfort, I feel, does give confidence. Tahoe Forest is amazing. If you've ever been a patient there, I'm sure you can attest to it, but the community as a whole really does rise up to help out their community as a base. And I've seen some pretty intense incisions on some patients who are with us for 4 or 5 months at a time. And seeing them progress outside the hospital and come back to us and being like, that one time you had that conversation made me laugh. It hurt, but at the same time, like, it made me feel like this is doable. So it kind of gives them a little bit more encouragement to be like, everything's gonna be fine, just follow the path and you'll be good to go.
Well, I love the warm blanket concept. I also think of safety as being a warm hug, just that feeling. That is my goal at Little Bird Music, to make every individual, whether they're 4 or 80, come in and feel like they are welcomed with a warm hug. And the kids are actually great. They don't care if they make a mistake. They're all in. But what I find is the adults come with a lot of shame and guilt in their bodies. And the one mistake, 99 right notes and one mistake, they just cringe. And they think I'm gonna yell at them or get really upset. I have this one student, I was hoping she would be here, but maybe it's best that she's not, because I'll tell her a story with no names, but she's 79 and she quit piano for 60 years and just came back to it a few years ago, and it's just been this slow awakening of joy. And she played a piece for me the other day, Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata, second movement, most perfect, timeless, beautiful piece on the planet. And she got through it and just started crying. And it was a moment of joy, but also I think neurological release. Like there was something in her body that was, it let go.
What comes to mind is something my dad always used to tell me, which is control what you can control. I always think about the amount of prep work we've put in to do the tricks, and the time and the gym and the mental work. And so I think something I try to reiterate to myself and my teammates, just constantly coming back to the concept of control what you can control. Because at the end of the day, you've done the work, and generally speaking, usually the things that go wrong are out of your control. And there's a lot of peace in letting go of that.
I've been working with this gentleman for over a decade, and in high school he had a really, really hard time. People didn't understand who he was. The things that worked for most people didn't work for him. When I started working with him, I started realizing that I can't tell him no, right? Maybe, which is really a good word. He couldn't feel that in his body. He needed to know that there's always a possibility of something happening, but really meeting the person where they're at, because what works for a lot of people, like a hug, doesn't work for all of my participants.
As a firefighter and as a man, the programming that was given to me growing up was about having to be strong and to not show weakness, and you better not cry, and if you ever are going to cry, it better not be in public. And to rewire that over 50 years is a lot of work in trying to figure out what that feels like. And a lot of times we talk about trying to figure it out, and the more we try to figure it out, the more we get caught in the loop of it gets worse. And it should, I believe, a healthier way is how can we feel it out. This idea of control, we always joke as firefighters, come to this breath work and you can, as a type A person who's supposed to be strong, take control of letting go is kind of our joke. So the reality is we have no control. Once we can embrace surrender, that, in my opinion, you have to feel safe. And when you have a surrender practice is when you can really feel deep in your body, and that's when you can grow, and that's when you can heal, and that's when you can love. That takes a lot for a lot of people, and you can go your whole lifetime, especially in my profession, in not being willing to embrace surrender. What happens is a whole lifetime of coping through numbness, and then you can survive, and then the result of that is love, joy, gratitude, all become numb as well. And so it's really rewarding to hear your vulnerability sharing in front of this group on your willingness to be back in your body is magic. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Where do you see the relationship between safety, courage, and creativity showing up most powerfully in the world right now for you?
As much as it seems really terrible, I think there is progress. For instance, for my clients and our programs, person-centered planning, that's talking to them about what do you want in your life? Specifically, who is in your life? What do you see happening with your life? what's the future look like for you? It's really progressive and really beautiful.
Right here, right now. I think just the idea of community, being together, making music together, breathing together, that's where it starts.
A lot of it I feel breaks down to just understanding of what needs are, whether that's the community, yourself, or the world as a whole. And there seems to be like a large breakdown of understanding where people are in the world. But I do see, especially the last few weeks, that people are now reaching out to others in their community in order to engage and build something better than what we had in the past. And I've noticed this with like dozens of people I work with that were very reclusive and not really want to work with people, and now they're kind of reaching out and like, hey, I need a little help understanding this, or I need a little help with this project. And maybe it's just a coincidence with me going out there and doing it myself, and then people are reciprocating in return, or it's just people are understanding that the path we're on, if we do not understand each other, is just doomed to fail.
I see the three elements really clashing in the progression of women's action sports right now. I mean, the progression in the last 4 years or so has just been exponential, and it's been wonderful to see, and the camaraderie among all the girls. In snowboarding specifically, it's not a space in which everyone is competitors and looks at each other like that. We're, at the end of the day, just all part of a group of people that are trying to push our sport and push women's sports in general. And so I think that there's this movement of, girls kind of taking the stand and being like, hey, we have this space where people support us and like want to see us doing these cool things. Yeah, and it gives everyone a space to feel more courageous and want to push the boundaries.
It's interesting because if you're trying to look in the world, the pictures, the news, the things that are fed to us right now make it seem like things are unraveling at a rapid pace, and the reality is I feel like we're expanding and contracting at the same time. And so it's where we decide if we put down our phones and are in community and are in a space of thriving. It's everywhere, and you'll see it in your own home, you'll see it in this room, you'll see it in this town, you'll see it at the Olympics, you'll see it with the clients you work with, and then you can easily get lost in your phone and not see it at all. And it can be overwhelming if we're trying to look at it from a global level, and our brains aren't wired to handle that. Someone in some growth work that I've been doing on myself said, when you get overwhelmed like that, our brains can't handle it. So give it to your heart can. So.
Oh, that's lovely.
Can I ask for Hannah, you mentioned mental coaching, and in passing briefly, what does that entail?
It entails a lot. I mean, thankfully with the US team, we all have access to a number of different sports psychs and therapists. There comes a point where you can only do so much gym work, you can only put so many hours on the slopes, and there's a lot of mental baggage that comes with it. And as athletes, we get to live these wonderfully fortunate lives. And so I think there can be at times a bit of guilt when maybe we're sad about something or something's getting us down, because you look at your life and you're like, holy smokes, I have health and I'm living this, I get to travel, I get to be an athlete. It's one of the coolest lifestyles to live, but at the same time, that doesn't take away from the fact that we also have feelings to feel. And so I think that working with a mental coach is a great way to just navigate your mental health and your space, and so that you can sort of take that distraction out of your sport and get to focus all of your mental energy into your craft. And then of course there's the injuries that we go through and the mental challenge behind that, and returning from injuries. Obviously you're always timid and scared at first, and you fear re-injury. And so yeah, speaking with the mental coach is kind of covers an array of things, but that's for me what it's been the most helpful for.
Does anybody in this room have something they want to share about how we can do better? Maybe putting down your phone, you said, because that can be overwhelming. Our brains aren't wired for it.
What's come up for me listening to everybody is also non-judgment, especially that's what Cameron was speaking of, thinking if I were in your place, I would want to try and come into a room
Be unbiased as possible.
without judgment. I just listened to Greg McCowan's podcast, and he spoke about the Queen. Her focus was to listen for understanding. And most of the time we're listening to judge and decide like where we stand on something and how we respond and, counter or agree.
It's very difficult to do that, especially in like my field, because you see people literally at their worst. 30-year drug user, 40-year alcoholic that just do not want to break their habits. And seeing them come in again and again and again, like I said, very special hospital. I've never worked at a hospital before where you get to meet your patients and see them grow or decline. But as someone who wants to take care of someone and see the best in somebody, it's very hard to like swallow that pill and be unbiased, be like, this person's not going to change. But we have to help guide them through this journey that they're going through. So I think when we're out in the real world and we see these people who don't fit our mold, don't be judgmental, be unbiased, and be like, we don't know how they got there.
Thank you so much for being willing to come into a completely new conversation and to just give these lovely people your attention and take in what they have had to say.